Hi everyone, we are Giovanna and Jesus. Today we will talk to you about code switching and how it reflects the real experience of being bilingual or bicultural. In class, we have read authors like Julia Alvarez, Juno Diaz, and Pat Mora, who through their works show us how living between two worlds can be both challenging and enriching. As immigrants, they face the challenge of adapting to a new country without losing the connection to their roots. It was precisely this cultural mix that gave them a unique literary voice. Through the use of code switching, they managed to capture the authenticity of their communities, express feelings that only one of the languages can name, and affirm their place with a society that has often seen them as others. Code switching is not just about switching languages, it is a form of identity. Code switching is the switching from one language to another within the same conversation. It is common in bilingual people, but it can also refer to changing behaviors or expressions depending on the cultural environment. For example, we might say, voy a ir al mall después de almorzar con mi abuela. This mix is natural for many of us. People code switch for many reasons: to express themselves better, to adapt to the context, to include, to include others, or even for emotions. Sometimes it is automatic. Sometimes it is a conscious choice. According to linguist Ana Celia Centella, code switching is not a sign of confusion, but of communicative skill. Code switching is also about who we are. Being bilingual is not only speaking two languages, but living between two cultures. Code switching reflects a flexible, adaptable identity. Personally, I sometimes feel like I'm a different version of myself when I speak English or Spanish. Julia Alvarez, in her book How the Garcia Girls Lost Their Accents, uses Spanglish and Dominican references to show how her characters navigate between cultures. For example, when the sisters speak English with the Americans, but revert to Spanish when they are with each other. It's an authentic reflection of bicultural life.
Diaz also uses in his stories in drum his combined English, Spanish, and street slang. His style reflects the true voice of many young Latinos in the USA and breaks traditional rules of academic English. It is a way of validating their identity and community. Palmora uses English and Spanish to talk about the conflict of feeling in between, neither totally Mexican nor totally American. This in between is as many bilingual people live through, and their poetry is a way of resisting the idea that you can only be one thing. Personal experience. In my case, I use code switching with my family and friends. With my teacher, I speak more formal Spanish, but at home, we mix words in English without realizing it. It's automatic. I remember once saying, Mommy, I did the homework, and she just smiled. It's part of our way of communicating. Popular culture can also be a form of empowerment in series like Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny's songs Spanish is used to celebrate Latin identity. It's not a barrier, it's a way of saying, that's how I talk and that's fine. In conclusion, code switching is not just a linguistic phenomenon. It is a window into the experience of millions of people living between cultures, as Alvarez, Diaz, and Mora show. Changing code can be confusing but also liberating. It allows us to be ourselves without having to choose between one language and another.